So go ahead and pick up your smartphone right now. Just look at the home screen.
Yeah, take a real look at it.
Exactly. Because if you're like most of us, there's probably, I don't know, a little red badge hovering over your email icon.
Always.
Right. And maybe 2 or 3 social media apps that are just begging for your attention with these super bright colors. And meanwhile, your battery's just slowly draining while you sit there and do absolutely nothing.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It really is. I mean, you're holding a literal supercomputer in your hand, but right now, for most people, it's acting like a digital slot machine.
That's a perfect way to put it.
I know. You pull the lever, you get that quick little dopamine hit, and suddenly you've lost an hour of your life. So when you look at that device, I think you really have to ask yourself a serious question. Is it working for you, or are you working for it?
And that right there is the core dilemma that's outlined in our stack of sources today.
Yeah, we have a really interesting stack today.
We do. We are looking at this really fascinating collection of technical briefings, productivity blueprints, and some serious power user guides. And their shared mission in this deep dive is to completely flip that dynamic you just mentioned.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Right. They offer this highly specific blueprint to transform your Android device from what they call a distraction industrial complex.
Wow, distraction industrial complex. That's intense.
It is. Because the current setup is designed purely for passive consumption. And they want to turn it into what they call a high-octane logic engine.
High-octane logic engine sounds incredibly cool.
It really does.
I mean, it sounds like we were finally moving from this consumption-first mindset to a creation-first system.
Yeah.
Like taking back control over the actual hardware you carry around in your pocket all day.
Exactly. And the underlying psychology of these sources, well, it focuses really heavily on something called your fluid intelligence.
Right, fluid intelligence.
Yeah, and for those who might be unfamiliar, fluid intelligence is basically your brain's raw processing power.
Like your RAM, sort of.
Sort of, yeah. It's your ability to think logically, to identify patterns and solve brand new problems without just relying on stuff you've already memorized.
Gotcha.
So every single time your phone vibrates with some random notification, or honestly, even every time your eyes just have to scan across a sea of those colorful, disorganized app icons on your screen,
Oh, I ate that.
you experience this measurable spike in cognitive load. It taxes your brain.
That makes total sense.
So this whole transformation blueprint, it's entirely about removing that friction. The ultimate goal here is to protect your fluid intelligence so your brain can actually do what it was built to do, which is think deeply.
Right, yeah. You can't build a world-class laboratory in a completely messy room.
Well, exactly.
And I think that is really where section 1 of this blueprint starts. Because, you know, before we get to install any of the fancy AI tools or build out these crazy automated systems, we have to optimize the environment for absolute zero friction.
We really do. The foundation of a logic engine has to be a radically minimalist interface.
Right. And the sources say you have to purge all of those colorful visual triggers.
All of them.
Which means using what they call the text-based interface. So things like Niagara Launcher or Before Launcher.
Yeah, those are the big ones mentioned.
So instead of that infinite grid of colorful squares and the little red notification badges that are basically screaming at you, your home screen just becomes a really simple, elegant list of text.
Just words on a screen.
But, okay, I do have to push back here for just a second.
Sure.
Isn't stripping away literally all the color, the custom app icons, the badges, isn't that making the phone incredibly boring? I mean, it sounds a bit like living in an unfurnished apartment. Like, where is the personality in that?
I get that. And that is actually a really common initial reaction. But the sources argue that it misses the entire point of the exercise.
How so?
Well, it's not about making the device boring. It's about forcing intention over distraction. I mean, think about it. Tech companies spend billions of dollars engineering those exact colorful icons to hijack your visual cortex.
Oh, totally. They want you clicking.
Right. So when your phone isn't constantly waving bright, shiny colors in your face, you only unlock the device when you have a specific, tangible problem to solve.
Ah, okay. So your phone goes back to being a toolbox
Right.
rather than just a toy.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to a really foundational rule mentioned across all these guides. They call it the two-tap rule.
Right. Yes, the two-tap rule.
Huh.
I love this concept.
It's so good.
It's the idea that, okay, let's say you have this brilliant thought while you're just walking down the street. If it takes you more than 2 taps on your screen to capture that idea, the friction is simply too high.
It's way too high. You'll lose it.
Exactly. You'll either forget the thought entirely Or you'll get distracted by, a random email you see on the way to opening your Notes app.
Right, so the interface just has to get out of your way.
Yeah.
And to push that concept even further, the briefings outline this very specific hardware tweak.
Oh, man, this part.
Yeah, they call this the mandatory day one task.
This part absolutely blew my mind because it instantly makes you feel like some kind of hacker.
It really does.
So the sources tell you to go into your Android's hidden developer options menu.
Which is usually hidden for a reason.
Right. But once you unlock that menu, you have to scroll down and find these 3 specific settings. It's the window animation scale, the transition animation scale, and the animator duration scale.
Right.
And you're supposed to change all 3 of them from their default setting all the way down to 0.5x.
Half speed. Well, half duration.
Exactly, half duration. But what is the actual mechanism happening there? Why does that matter?
So smartphone manufacturers use animations, those really smooth split-second fades when you open an app or that sliding motion when you pull down a menu.
Yeah, it makes it look pretty.
Right, it makes the interface feel fluid.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, it's actually there to mask the loading time of the app itself. It's a cosmetic delay.
Okay.
So by cutting that animation time directly in half, you are stripping away that fake cosmetic delay. It basically makes the user interface respond at the literal speed of thought. And you honestly don't realize how much that microscopic delay slows down your momentum until you turn it off.
It just snaps.
The phone suddenly just snaps to attention.
Yes. And then you add to that something they call notification siloing.
Crucial step.
Yeah, the sources talk about using apps like Buzzkill or honestly even just the native Android focus mode.
Yeah, whatever works.
Right, to create this environment where only the absolutely essential high-signal alerts are allowed to break through.
Right, no random game notifications.
Exactly. It's like drawing a VIP velvet rope around your attention. So maybe, only your spouse or your boss has the ability to make the physical phone vibrate.
So once you combine that really strict notification siloing with the 0.5x animation speed and that minimalist text-based interface, you have successfully eliminated the digital noise.
The room is finally clean.
The room is clean?
Okay, I definitely see how that sets the stage. But a clean room doesn't actually solve problems on its own.
No, it doesn't.
Right, so now that the phone is incredibly fast and quiet, you need to actually feed it information.
Yeah.
But frankly, my problem isn't just a messy home screen. The sources point out this really massive physical bottleneck.
The glass screen.
Yes, typing on a tiny piece of glass, it is inherently terrible.
It's the worst.
The mismatch between how fast our brain thinks and how fast our 2 thumbs can tap away is huge. It's like trying to put out a roaring fire through a coffee stirrer.
That is a great analogy. And to build a true logic engine, you need high bandwidth input.
Right.
You have to upgrade to the fire hose. So the briefings suggest transitioning to what they call an external brain.
Yeah.
And they highlight 2 primary methods to get data into that external brain almost instantly.
Right. So the first one they call voice to logic. And just to be totally clear here, they are not talking about that basic dictation keyboard that comes pre-installed on the phone.
No, definitely not.
The one where you just kind of mumble into it and it gets half the words completely wrong.
Oh, yeah, the native dictation is awful for complex thought. No, they are referencing much more advanced tools, things like Whisperflow or Otter.ai.
Okay.
The mechanism here is totally different from that old school dictation. You can literally be pacing around your living room, just speaking your absolute most complex, messy, rambling thoughts out loud.
Just a total brain dump.
Exactly. And these tools use AI to not just transcribe the literal words, but to actively structure them into coherent, logical paragraphs and bullet points right on the fly.
That is wild. And then the second method they mention is optical capture.
Yes.
Which is using tools like Microsoft Lens or Google Lens to instantly digitize the physical world around you.
Right, because they rely on OCR optical character recognition.
Okay, how does that work in practice?
So imagine you are sitting in a meeting and someone draws this incredibly complex flow chart on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
You don't sit there and copy it down manually into your notebook.
No,
You just point your camera at it. The OCR software instantly recognizes the shapes of the handwriting. It translates it into editable, searchable digital text, and it pulls it right into your system.
Wow.
You can do the exact same thing with a stack of printed documents or even just a specific page in a physical book you're reading.
Okay, so you've captured all this data at incredibly high speed,
Yeah.
right? You've got these structured voice memos, you've got whiteboard scans, book excerpts.
Right.
But where does it all actually go? Because if I just dump all of that into my default, Apple Notes or Google Keep app, it's just going to become this massive graveyard of half-baked thoughts that I will literally never look at again.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does the system actually prevent that?
Well, what's fascinating here is the ideological shift that the sources really demand from you. You have to stop just hoarding notes, and you have to start building an interconnected knowledge graph.
A knowledge graph.
Yeah, this is where the whole concept of the focal brain comes in. And the guides really heavily favor an app called Obsidian for this.
Yeah, Obsidian keeps coming up.
Though they do mention more for more database-heavy tasks.
Right. But Obsidian is the main one. And the sources point out that it relies on something called markdown files.
Right.
Which, for anyone who isn't a software developer, you can just think of Markdown as the absolute most basic, plain text way to write on a computer.
It's completely bare bones.
Yeah, there's no hidden proprietary formatting code that basically locks your data into a specific company's app. It means your notes are just simple text files that live directly on your phone's local storage.
Not trapped on some random tech company's cloud server.
Exactly.
And because they are just local text files, they are incredibly fast to search, and they are completely future-proof.
Right.
But the real power of Obsidian, the reason they push it so hard, is that it allows you to dynamically link these notes together.
Okay, explain that.
So instead of just making a linear, grocery list of ideas, you create bidirectional links between different concepts.
Bidirectional.
Yeah. So a note you took on, say, an overarching marketing strategy automatically connects to a scan you took of a psychology book last week.
Oh, wow.
Which then connects to a random voice memo you recorded about your monthly budget. Your phone actually transitions from a temporary storage locker into this relational database of your own thought processes.
It's mapping how your biological brain actually works.
Precisely.
But, capturing and storing that data in an external brain is really only half the battle, because a hard drive is just a filing cabinet.
Right.
It doesn't actually think.
No, it just sits there.
Right. And the sources say this is where the deep dive gets really wild, because the phone needs to become an active thinking partner.
Yeah, we move from the storage layer straight into the processing layer.
Right.
The briefings argue that we absolutely must move beyond using AI as just a basic chatbot, asking it to summarize an article or give you a quick recipe for dinner.
Yeah, the basic stuff.
We need to use it for deep, rigorous analysis.
Okay, and enter Notebook LM. So you open this up in your mobile web browser, and you literally upload your specific PDFs, your meeting notes, and all of your personal Obsidian research.
Right.
And by doing that, the tool becomes what the sources call a grounded expert.
And that term is vital here. A grounded expert means the AI is no longer just pulling from the vast generalized garbage of the open internet.
Right. It's not hallucinating based on Reddit.
Exactly. It is restricted, it is grounded, to only look at the highly specific data set that you provided.
And then you use this grounded expert for what they call logical sparring.
Logical sparring, yes.
Which means you aren't just asking it questions to get easy answers. You literally prompt the AI with things like, find the contradictions in this marketing plan.
Right.
Or challenge the underlying assumptions of my budget here.
Yeah.
You are actively using the AI to aggressively stress test your own reasoning.
You are actively querying your own customized knowledge base.
It's brilliant.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources introduce an even more advanced concept. They call it vibe coding.
Okay, yes, vibe coding. I was so stuck on this when I read the briefings.
It's a crazy term.
The name sounds like absolute tech bro magic, honestly, or just a completely meaningless buzzword.
Oh, totally.
But they claim that if you have a recurring, hyper-specific problem like, let's say you need a bespoke grading rubric calculator for a college class you teach.
Okay.
Or maybe a really weird niche logistics tracker for your small business.
Right.
You don't have to wait for an app developer to make it for you. You can just use Google AI Studio or an app called Replit Mobile.
Yeah.
But what is actually happening there? Like, what does that mean?
Okay, so it does sound like a buzzword, I agree, but the underlying capability is very, very real. Vibe coding basically refers to using natural, plain English to instruct an AI to write functional computer code for you.
Wow.
You aren't dragging and dropping interface buttons. You simply describe the exact logic problem to the AI. You tell it the variables you need, the math required, and the exact desired output.
Just typing it out normally.
Just normal English. And the AI then generates the Python or HTML code on the back end and deploys a fully functional mini web app right there on your phone screen.
Wait, really? So instead of going and searching the App Store for some generalized tool that only kind of does what you want. You just explain your specific problem, and a custom tool pops into existence.
Precisely. Because you have completely offloaded the burden of knowing any coding syntax to the AI.
That is unbelievable.
And then you add in these visual mapping tools mentioned in the sources, like XMind or MindMeister.
Right.
Those allow you to physically draw out the decision trees of these really complex problems rather than just viewing them as a boring linear list.
Well, I like that.
Yeah, so suddenly you have a completely customized analytical suite right in your pocket.
Okay, but wait. A true logic engine shouldn't require me to manually push buttons every single day to do the boring, repetitive stuff.
Well,
Right?
of course not.
If the AI is handling all the heavy thinking, what about the daily execution?
Yeah.
Because I really don't want to manually trigger my deep work modes or copy-paste data every morning.
Right, and this is exactly where the concept of automation and cognitive offloading comes into play.
Okay.
The sources point to apps like Tasker and MacroDroid as the absolute gold standards for Android automation.
Tasker, right.
And to be clear, these aren't just simple alarm clocks. They operate on what are called automated contexts.
Yes. And I love the analogy here of Tasker acting like a tiny, invisible digital butler.
It really is.
Like you think of your phone's GPS not just as a map, but as a literal tripwire.
Right.
So Tasker lets you draw an invisible fence around your office building. And the second your phone physically crosses that GPS line, it trips the wire.
Yep.
Your phone automatically enables a deep work profile. It completely silences your notifications. It blocks all your social media routing, and it opens your note-taking app.
All automatically.
And you literally never even took the phone out of your pocket.
Exactly. And you can trigger those same exact tripwires using the Bluetooth connection in your car or your home Wi-Fi network.
Oh, that's small.
Yeah, and it actually goes even deeper with plugins like Auto Input.
Auto Input.
Yeah, Auto Input basically acts as a virtual finger.
A virtual finger.
It can literally automate physical taps on your screen.
No way.
Yeah, so if you have to log into this really clunky web portal every morning for work or fill out the exact same repetitive form for your daily expenses,
Yeah.
Auto Input physically does the tapping for you in the background while you do something else.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But the mechanism there is purely about preserving your willpower, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have to remember to actively log your expenses or remember to go into settings and turn on Do Not Disturb,
Yeah.
you conserve all that mental energy for actual high-level synthesis and problem solving.
Exactly. The sources refer to that as cognitive offloading. You are literally freeing up your brain's RAM.
Right. But, okay, what if the work you do is really, really intense? Like, well, this all sounds great for, managing emails, doing budgets, and writing projects. But the briefings have an entire section dedicated to true power users.
Oh, the power users.
Right,
Sure.
like people tackling hardcore technical, mathematical, or scientific challenges. And wait, hold on. Looking at this section, they're talking about running full Linux distributions and 247 AI assistants directly on the phone's physical hardware.
They are.
Isn't this going to just absolutely nuke my battery life in, like, an hour?
Yeah.
And why on earth would the average person need server-level logic running during their morning commute?
Well, the short answer is the average person absolutely doesn't.
Right.
But this blueprint is really about unlocking the device's absolute ceiling. I mean, most people don't realize that beneath the glossy Android user interface, the operating system is actually built on a Linux kernel.
Right. It's Linux underneath.
Yeah. So the sources suggest using an app called Termux.
Termux.
Right, which essentially peels back that Android wallpaper and gives you a full command line terminal. It allows real coders or scientists to run Ubuntu, Python, or Node.js scripts completely locally without even needing a cloud connection.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Inside of Termux, the sources talk about running something called OpenClaw.
Yes, OpenClaw.
What is that?
So OpenClaw basically operates as a local AI assistant that just runs constantly in the background of your phone.
Okay.
It uses a free Gemini API key, which you can kind of think of an API key as a VIP backstage pass.
Right, to the AI.
Exactly. It lets you access the AI's raw brain directly, totally bypassing those flashy, battery-draining consumer apps.
Wow.
So OpenClaw can handle background research and complex task automation completely independently without you ever needing to open a laptop or a desktop PC.
That is nuts. And the hardware itself is really pushed to the absolute limit here.
It is.
The sources mention apps like Physics Toolbox Sensor Suite or Firefox.
Yeah.
They point out that a modern smartphone has a magnetometer, a gyroscope, an accelerometer, a light sensor.
All built in.
Right. And these apps basically bypass the standard interface and let you use those internal components as literal real-world diagnostic tools. You can measure magnetic fields or calculate G-force while you're on a roller coaster.
It's crazy. And then you add in computational tools, things like Wolfram Alpha, for solving incredibly advanced calculus equations.
Yeah.
Or Photomath, which literally lets you point your phone's camera at a handwritten, complex math problem, and it instantly gives you step-by-step logical breakdowns.
The phone literally becomes a Star Trek tricorder, combined with a portable laboratory.
It really does. But, the sources make a really vital point here that we shouldn't overlook.
Which is?
You can't just outsource everything to the machine. You must actively maintain your own biological brain.
Right. They strongly recommend using platforms like Brilliant to develop what they call first principles thinking, especially in STEM fields.
Yes.
And first principles thinking just basically means truly understanding the fundamental truths of a problem rather than just blindly memorizing a formula.
Exactly. And they pair that first principles approach with an app called Anki.
Right, Anki.
Which uses something called spaced repetition.
Yeah, spaced repetition is amazing. It's basically this digital flashcard system that is timed perfectly to your brain's natural forgetting curve.
Right.
So it shows you a concept right at the exact mathematical moment you're about to forget it, which just forcefully locks it right into your long-term memory.
Exactly, because the overarching goal here isn't just to let the phone do all the thinking while you get progressively dumber.
Right, you don't want that.
No, the goal is to use the phone's systems to ensure that key facts and logical frameworks are always retained in your biological memory, so you are always ready for on-the-fly problem solving in the real world.
Okay, so we have all of these incredible pieces out on the table right now.
We do.
We have a frictionless interface, we've got high bandwidth voice and visual capture, an AI sparring partner, background automation, and these crazy server-level technical tools.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. And honestly, a giant pile of tools is really just digital clutter if you don't know how to use them.
Exactly.
So if a really complex problem hits me on like a random Tuesday afternoon, how do I actually string all these things together so I'm not just frantically jumping between 10 different apps?
That raises a very important question, and it's exactly why the sources outline a very strict, integrated workflow.
Okay.
The true unlock here isn't the apps themselves, it is the system.
Right.
And they present this four-step pipeline: capture, clarify, synthesize, and execute.
Capture, clarify, synthesize, execute. It's basically an assembly line for decisions.
That's exactly what it is.
You don't just leave an anxious thought bouncing around inside your head. You feed it into the start of the pipeline, and a clear action item pops out the other side.
Let's walk through the exact example they provided in the briefings.
Yeah, the budget one.
Right. Tackling a really complicated budget challenge for a new side hustle. So, step one is capture. You're driving in your car, and suddenly the anxiety about the budget just hits you out of nowhere.
It happens all the time.
Right. So you use your high bandwidth input, your voice to text via WhisperFlow, to instantly log all the messy, unfiltered details of those financial concerns directly into your phone. And you never even take your eyes off the road.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then step two is clarify.
Clarify, yes.
So when you finally get home, you pull that transcribed text into your second brain, which is Obsidian.
Right.
And you don't just, stare at it. You actively apply structured mental models to it. The sources suggest frameworks like the 5 whys.
Right.
Which is just asking why a problem exists 5 layers deep until you find the actual root cause. Or, honestly, my personal favorite is inversion.
Oh, inversion is a deeply powerful analytical tool.
It really is.
Yeah. Instead of asking, how do I make this budget succeed, you ask yourself, what are all the exact ways this budget could completely fail and totally bankrupt the project?
Right.
By identifying those failure points, you clarify exactly what risks need to be mitigated. You break that messy voice memo down into distinct, manageable parts.
Which naturally leads straight into step 3.
Yeah.
Synthesize.
Yes.
So you take those freshly clarified notes and you feed them into your grounded expert Notebook LM.
Right.
You explicitly ask the AI to, research specific tax implications based on your state, or maybe to find hidden patterns in your raw expense data.
Exactly.
You are leveraging the AI's processing power to generate a concrete decision matrix.
And finally, step 4, execute.
The most important part.
Absolutely, because a brilliant solution just sitting alone in a notes app is utterly useless.
Yep.
You must move the final decision out of that conceptual space and into a concrete task manager, like Tick or Todoist.
Right.
You schedule the exact date and the exact time you will execute that specific action in your calendar, and then the pipeline is complete.
Boom. But there is actually a massive caveat to this whole pipeline that the sources mention. They
Okay.
call it the one problem at a time rule.
Yes, this is critical. Multitasking basically destroys deep problem solving.
It ruins it.
So to make this entire pipeline actually work, the guides strongly recommend strict time thinking sessions.
Yeah.
They suggest putting your phone physically into airplane mode for 15 to 30 minutes, actively disconnecting from the outside internet, and focusing solely on moving one single problem through those 4 stages.
Wow.
It artificially mimics the environment of deep work.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you listening right now? We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started by speeding up your phone's internal animations to 0.5x and just zeroing out all that visual friction on the home screen.
Yep.
Then we upgraded your inputs, right? Capturing universally with AI voice structuring and optical character recognition.
High bandwidth.
Exactly. Then we talked about actively sparring with a grounded AI that only knows your personal data, vibe coding your own custom mini apps using just plain English, and automating the boring daily tasks with those invisible digital butlers. And even tapping into server-level Linux tools if you really need them.
The overarching shift here is profound. You are fundamentally transitioning from being just a passive consumer of content algorithms to becoming the active architect of your own efficiency.
Yes, and the sources actually gave you a very specific day one task to kick off this transformation today.
Yes, they did.
So unlock your phone, go straight into your developer options, set those 3 animation scales to 0.5x, and actually feel how fast it is.
Just try it.
Then be absolutely ruthless, declutter your home screen, remove every single social media icon.
Get rid of them.
Replace them with just a simple Obsidian widget for instantly capturing your thoughts, and a quick shortcut to your AI of choice. Just stop scrolling and start solving.
That's a great challenge. And as we wrap up today, I actually want to leave you with a final concept to just mull over.
Okay.
It kind of builds on everything we've explored.
Let's hear it.
If you actually implement this whole system, like if your smartphone truly becomes this flawless, high-octane external brain that captures, synthesizes, and automates your life perfectly,
Yeah.
how does that actually alter your biological brain over time?
Oh, wow.
Right. If we successfully outsource our logic, our memory retention, and our routine execution to this little pocket-sized laboratory, are we at risk of letting our internal capacity to think deeply just atrophy?
That's scary.
Or by freeing up all that cognitive RAM, are we simply evolving and preparing our biological minds to tackle much grander, more complex human problems?
Man, that is a truly fascinating question to take with you. Well, as always, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah.
Take that brand new logic engine of yours out for a spin, and we will catch you next time.